Hello everyone, welcome to the final episode of this series on the MAMIYA C220. In this video, I'm going to go over everything again and talk a bit more about parallax. First, let's start with the basics. Let's review exposure first. Exposure has two different parts, the aperture and the shutter speed. Shutter speed controls how long the lens is open for. This means the longer shutter speed, the brighter the image, because more light is being exposed onto the film. Aperture determines how wide the lens is open. A smaller aperture actually means a wider hole in the lens, which means more light coming in, and also a blurrier background. And don't forget that map I talked about a few episodes ago. This can also help you get your exposure if you're in a rush. Again, the MAMIYA doesn't have a built-in light meter, which means you'll need an external one, like a Seikonic. One thing to watch out when you're using the C220 is parallax. Since you're looking through the top lens but actually taking the photo through the bottom one, what you see in the viewfinder isn't exactly what the camera captures, especially when you're shooting up close. Now, I've already talked about the map on the side and how that correlates to the lines on the viewfinder to correctly adjust for parallax. So let's take a closer look and see what this map doesn't tell us. First off, the map has blocked out sections for 1, 2, 3x, etc., when in reality this is more of a linear progression. The parallax doesn't jump from 1 to 2 straight on that line, but instead it eases its way, like 1, 1.1, 1.2 until it gets to 2. This means that if you find yourself in between the boxes, you may have to find a medium within the lines on the viewfinder. I've actually done the calculations and graphed it to show you this more clearly. As you can see by the graph, the parallax and the aperture corrections are actually gradual. I superimposed the graphs together with the aperture map here. The x-axis of the graph shows the distance that the lens is from the film plane. Using the formula I showed earlier, you can see that the multiplier for the exposure increases as the lens gets further away from the film plane. When the bellows is fully extended, the multiplier is 1.99x for the 105mm lens. When using a different lens, the values will change based on that lens that you're using, say for example the 80mm lens. Now let's introduce one final tool, the cable release. This accessory screws into the shutter button and allows you to trigger the camera without touching it. It allows you to minimize vibration during long exposures or when you're shooting with the camera mounted on a tripod. Thank you all so much for joining me on this series. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something. I'll see you in the next one.